Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus3 Futures and Commodities Show. Today is Sunday, the 10th of July. My name is Ben Maldonado, and as always, I'm here with my partner, Barrie Hederachi. How you doing, Barrie?
I'm doing pretty well. I was a little bit under the weather last couple of days.
You sound
That's
good. Back in
and that's the reason for a Sunday recording.
Yeah, but we'll roll through this. There, very interesting show we're going to have for you. In addition to Barry's Big Five, where he covers the dollar, euro, gold, crude, bonds, and the ES. In addition to that, we're going to do a big move on commodities this week to cover wheat, corn, soybeans, silver, copper, natural gas, sugar, and cotton. So buckle up. It's going to be a fast and wild ride. And we'll start it with Bitcoin. The thing, I guess, that the words that come to mind when I look at this chart is I've fallen and I can't get up. I just with the movement we've seen in risk, and even when we come back and I do the NQs, NQs have actually been leading the stock market, leading ES higher. So you would think we would see a little stronger bounce in Bitcoin, but we're just not seeing it. Nothing's changed from last week other than we essentially went sideways to a little higher. We did get a higher low, if you're looking for a ray of light. So maybe we can push higher off of that, but until we're above this full square, which is in the, call it 24,600 area, till we're above that, we're vulnerable for more declines. Ultimately, the low we're looking at, if we just do this ABC into this target zone, in addition to the smaller ABC, anywhere from 9,000 to 12,000 is the range we're looking at for an ultimate low here. The only other thing I'd add is I did some timing. If we went high to low, like we went this low to high was 141 calendar days. If we do a high to low and do 141 calendar days, it puts us around August 19th. 18th, 17th area, which fits with some bigger cycle stuff. So until proven differently and we clear this full square, I'd say this cycle is looking like a low sometime in mid-August. Where are you on Bitcoin, Barrie? Any difference of opinion here?
No, not really. I agree. It's just a matter of, if even that 9 to 10,000 is actually a practical goal. It might be lower. We'll have to wait and see. Because the way it's going, there hasn't been really a good washout. It's just been a little bit here, then consolidate a little bit there, consolidate. So
yeah, kind of stair stepping down.
Mm-hmm. And the washout would, it would take, well, I guess 50% from here would be kind of a washout. So
yeah. I mean, if it goes to 10, that's a 50% move. So
yeah, I like you said, I think the main square line is the one to watch.
Let's see how it plays out. Let me flip it over to you and let's run through the big five and see what we saw this week. There's the mini.
I wanted to cover a couple of different things, a couple of key things this week. One, well, let's pick up where we left it off. And you guys, if you're new, it would be really helpful to you to go back and watch, 1 or 2 or 3 episodes and catch up, in order, right? And that way you can kind of see how we got to where we are.
Because it definitely is a story.
Yeah, there's definitely a story, and we keep the charts the same, so it's easier to follow along and a little bit more practical. So First thing is I want to talk about this low here. This it came down 144 degrees. We spent some time on this last couple of episodes, and we were looking for a rally. We got a rally, and all the levels and things, of course, change every week. And those are in the old episodes. But for now, last week, we left it off saying that if we could get above 3850, that we can go and challenge, this 3960 to 4,000 level. And looks like we're on the way there.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing's really changed. But I think it's important that we can stay above around 39. We really want to try to stay above that. Yeah, this 39.34, which is 50% of the square, the red dash line.
Mhm.
Once we get through that, I think it opens up the pathway, not just to 4,000. I think it opens it up all the way up to, 40.50.
Mm. And that
So
level, where are you thinking? 39.54?
I mean, if we get above,
Yeah.
let me add this number, move
Mhm.
that up there. Well, I'm saying if we can clear 39.30, let's say, this is
Mm.
39.34. Well, let's stick with the number 39.34.
Mhm.
If we can clear that, then I think it opens it up all the way to 40.50. So we got better than 100 points upside potential if we can clear this halfway point. And that would line up with our ABCD up, and that might be a really good spot for the market to stall out again.
Mhm.
Now, once we get there, depending on the strength, we could push a little higher. Remember this box that we drew in? That's sort of the, it was the old support, but now new resistance.
Mhm.
And we'll see how it plays out. And for next week, I would say to watch any kind of a pullback holding above 38.50 keeps the bullish scenario intact, and being able to get above and hold above 39.34 will open it up to 40.50,
Mhm.
just to keep it simple. And that'll give us the ABCD completion also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. One thing I was looking at is if we get the same magnitude in terms of rally as we got off the March lows, it also puts us up into that 41.80 area that we talked about previously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Right around 42. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right in there. Because
So
it was
next
like,
week, those are the three levels to watch. Pullbacks holding about 38.50, clearing this 39.34 level. And after that, it's pretty open going into 40.50
mm-hmm.
or even a little bit higher. So let's take a look at the weekly. Well, this is not the weekly, but might as well talk about this.
Sure.
I posted this on Twitter last week. I mean, fairly simple, but geometry is always simple. My take is that if we can hold this lower line, long as we can hold the lower line, I think we can continue to grind higher. I would just leave it at that, and breaking this upper trend line, the upper side of the upper fork line, would sort of open up that next leg up.
We move.
Which, yeah, it could be a somewhat of a bigger move. So we'll have to see. This red fork is getting a little bit old, so we'll have to see how that works out. I feel like that came to an end here, and the blue one is the one sort of in control. So we'll have to wait and see. But I want to post this, show you guys this, so maybe you can duplicate the lines. It's not that difficult, and
That's a good one.
yeah, and use it as a guide. Now let's go to the actual weekly. All right. Not much to add from last week because we basically had a, inside bar. So this 35.70 area continues to be key support. It also happens to be a half square. We had major resistance here. That's where we turned down the 41.50 level. And now we're struggling to make any headway. Of course, we're under that. We talked about how about if I zoom in a bit? I keep forgetting how, when people watch it, it's on different size monitors and different resolutions.
Right.
So we talked about, as we were breaking, we were talking about how, any kind of a bound coming to kiss this line from below and then sell off. So we had that 1 week of selling off. And last week was basically inside of that. And so we can, looking at the weekly chart, if we can take out last week's high, I think we have a chance to go up and test the old highs again, and maybe even try to penetrate this line. Not that this line holds any great power, but it's just a good guideline to watch to see how how the battle is sort of forming.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't look like we're done yet. So that's why we have to really watch where the impulses are running into problems, and on the way up there, we really want to watch where the pullbacks are. holding. Anything you want to add, Ben?
No, you're right. We're at a decision point where we had an inside week, ended it strongly. Price will tell us this week whether it's ready to push to go with the next level up, or if we're gonna just see more chop here.
Right.
A lot of the stuff I'm looking at, it looks like we're ready to push again. Once we maybe finish up, chop around Monday, this thing could push up for the next leg.
So here's another view of the same chart, obviously, but with the same square coming off of the high. And you can see how we came down 72, which turns out to be the 144 on the daily chart. Mm-hmm. And you can see how the 50% was always sort of a key level here. Even on the way down, it was kind of supporting. Then on the way down, it was support, bounced off of it, came back down under it, then it got stuck below, and we came down to 72. Now we're kind of stuck exactly where the quarter of the square is. Mm-hmm. That's why it's important. If we can take out the highs from, matter of fact, last week's high was exactly on the quarter square. Mm-hmm. So if we take that out, it opens up a lot of territory to the upside.
What's that half square? Where's that?
Half square is 42, let's say 42.10.
Yeah, I think that's realistic.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's out of reach. So I would leave it at that.
Right in the neighborhood of that 41.80 too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the key thing to watch is not the upside targets, but sort of where the support levels are on counter trends. So 38.50 is a key level to watch next week to see if any kind of a pullbacks can hold above that. As long as we can do that, we're good. And if we right away take out the 50%, 39.34, 39.30 area, then I would watch that to hold on any kind of a counter trend on the way up to 40.50.
Bonds are at an interesting spot here.
Oh yeah.
Real interesting.
And we've been able to call it pretty well. So we were looking for these ABCD to complete. I dropped this resistance line, and that's exactly where it stalled out last week, and we turned down. And the fact that we couldn't hold at the old 216 degrees down is pointing towards weakness. Mm-hmm. So now, it's possible that we go a little lower here. Key thing up until this point was, we saw the low come in. Then the next thing was, okay, we're going to run up and test that 137, 138 area. And we did that, came back, took it out. And the next level of resistance was really the completion of this ABCD and the trend line. Well, we'd held. So now, as long as we're below this full square, around, let's say 137.20, the path of least resistance is to the downside. Mm-hmm. Are you looking at bonds today? No?
No, I wasn't going to talk about them because they're not quite set up yet. We're trying, and the stuff I was looking at on my work, we need more evidence to figure out, are we going to get a higher low from which to, take the next leg higher, or are we just going to roll over and make new lows?
Right.
And that's an open question right now.
Yeah. Looks like we're probably going to go lower because this really didn't finish it. Didn't have a good completion. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's enough for a bounce, eh? So Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
Now we did have 72 bars down. Look exactly where it came up to, right? Full square. Mm-hmm. This is why we use the squares. It's much easier to use, know where you're frame the price action. So you can see how it came right up into that and turned down. So at least we're going to go back and test the halfway point. I would just say we're going to go back and test the lows and maybe even take them out. So we got to watch that.
Yep.
Yeah. That not holding, well, first of all, not holding above 140 was the first sort of the warning or the sign, and not being able to hold this 216 down was the second one. So that's sort of the condition.
Agreed.
Looking at the weekly, well, we left it off talking about this 141 level and saying that if we can't really get above that, market's in a weak position, and you saw what happened. We went right up in there, turned around, and it would make sense for it to go down and retest this low. And on the weekly basis, we could get a higher low. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, it just looks like it's either we're going to consolidate in here up in this area, or we're going to go a little lower. So that's all I got for that. Crude, well, we keep talking about this 97, 96, 97 area. 97.
How good was that this week?
It was very good. Key support. And we've had this box drawn in, I don't know, 6 months or so. And you can see how I should probably extend that.
It dipped right into it and then bounced.
There we go. So this is the key level to watch. And we came off of that looking pretty good. And the reason we were looking for some weakness was we did 45 bars, low to high. And that gave us and we had some other cycles expiring up there, I think. So that came in pretty well. And using the square of 72, you can see how, off the December lows, 72 is right up in here. So long as we can sort of manage above 97, like I said last week, the market's in pretty fair shape. It's firm. Doesn't mean we might not consolidate in here, but as long as we're doing it above 97, it's definitely got a chance to run on short notice. And if we ever get sort of stuck under that, we definitely have room to go down.
Yeah, something different's happening when that happens.
See how that box is holding. So once it breaks that, just like holding above it, getting under it's just as important. So.
It's funny too. I was looking at my crude. I'm not going to talk about it because I know you are, but 104 was the key level, and we closed just over 104 for the week.
Yep.
So there's still a bid in crude. There's the weekly. Perfectly.
There's a weekly, and the reason why that 97, 95 area is important is because of this. We're 90 up, and like we've been saying, long as we're holding above that 90. Around 97, 95, 97. It's in a sort of a warmed up position. It's bullish. It's consolidating, but it's a bullish consolidation. And we'll just leave it at that. Could we start running next week? I think it's possible because the 97 and all that got tested really well. And so it could try to make a new run at the highs. We'll have to wait and see. I certainly wouldn't be trading at the short side at this point, not with this 97 holding.
Yeah, not until you get under 97 does it make any sense.
Yeah, or we hit something really major up to the upside.
Correct. A square out type move.
There's gold.
Coming into support.
And I pointed out this 90 by 90 a while back. And looks like we're coming right into that. And if we do, that's
huge.
Yeah, that's a significant point. And so watch that. Pay attention to that. The level is 1717. And exactly 90 is on Tuesday. So on Prime Day.
It's close enough for government work right now.
That's right. Now this could obviously go plus or minus a couple of days, but basically this is a very nice counter trend. It's a solid number, so we'll watch that.
It is a solid square in a period of cyclical change. So pay attention.
And we wanted to see, if you're going to do it, we have to just really do a washout, get all the weak hands out, and we'll see how well we can manage that. And if we do that, it seems like we would want to take out this at least test 1676, because that seems like the let me put a number there.
Where all the stops are, right?
Well, yeah, and it's the old support, right? Look here, all through here. Before that, it was resistance, got on top, sat there, retest. So we would definitely have to go a little bit under before we get
You know
above.
they got to undercut that, right?
I would like it if they did at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're kind of going for broke. So
Mhm.
let it go ahead and do that. So for next week, it's really watching how the square holds. Now it doesn't have to do that, obviously, depending on demand and the strength of everything. But 1676 is the key level, and the 1717 is a key level. Those are the two levels to watch, keeping in mind that we have this 90-day cycle that's in there.
It's a really good look at where we are.
What, like commodities kind of bottoming out, or
A lot of stuff is coming into squares, and time and just price and time are coming together on the commodity side in a lot of markets.
right?
I mean, it doesn't mean they do a V from here, but it means we need to pay attention. Opportunities are going to unfold here shortly.
Absolutely. So here we have weekly, and boy, what a saga, right? Watching it from here, coming down, went back up to 2000, came back down right through our support, went back to tap this 1881 area, sold off. Really didn't, the 1767 area really didn't hold, just washed out right through. And this is textbook fourth wave kind of action. So clearly there's another leg in there. So, and we just want to make sure we can isolate that starting point. And using that daily square and the price action around those cycles, that's one reliable way to do it.
Absolutely.
So here, weekly basis, I can't remember how I got this number, but the 1670s looks important. And it lines up with some of these other, that support line that I drew in at the other chart.
Right, the same spot. Yep.
Yeah. So let's see how that goes. Maybe a couple of ABCDs going down. Oh, that looks really...
It's a deep one.
I would call that a washout.
Yeah.
Either that or a buy it with both hands, right?
Right. And then the other one's right at your level.
Yeah. So let's focus on that first. And that lines up with the 1670, which was there way before any of this happened. So
we know where the important spots are, and that's 3/4 of the battle.
That's right. And coming into the dollar.
There's your 3 drives.
3 drives and a big old reversal, right?
Yeah. Man, you've been all over that. Really, really nailing the dollar.
Thanks, man.
And the dollar is driving everything too right now. You get the dollar right, you can get almost any other market right. So the question is, do we have a turn here or not?
Yeah, that's the question. Man, our work is never done, is it?
No. Nope. Doesn't matter what you did last week. What are you going to do this week?
Well, I was looking at this square 72 where, off the 2021 lows, we're up 144, came right in there and reversed.
That's
really... So I'm going to use price levels like we normally do. And I would say as long as we're below this 107.25, let's say, let me put that in place right there.
Yep, right on the full square.
So here's the other thing we did from the start. We did go 72 up into the square. We squared out, actually, right? So we squared out from here where the whole move started, and we're 144 from here. So I would say we have enough. Plus we have the 3 drives.
Yep.
We have enough to be concerned.
Right.
And if we can't pretty quickly get above 107, then we'll have to start looking at maybe the dollar's going to turn down for a bit. Yeah.
And that has ramifications for interest rates and bonds and the stock market and risk. I mean, it's pretty important stuff.
Right. And looking at the weekly dollar chart, I dropped these 2 numbers, call that to be the resistance, 107.5, 106.75 to 107.5 area. And that's pretty much where the 144 degrees is off the 2021 low. And it pretty much completes one of these measured moves, It doesn't have to be to the tick. It could be off a little bit here and there, but we're definitely in the zone. And it's very likely that we completed something. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. and
The
use
question is, what's next, right? Do we come down sharply and correct, or do we just consolidate and go sideways? That's to me, that's always the question at this point.
no, I don't think it's going to be sideways. At this time, I think if we're done, it's going to be rather quick.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason, I mean, and we would have to use that 107, this level up here, as a reference point, and you know, if you're selling, you have to sell against that just to know where your reference is. Like
Sure.
I said, if we get above that 107.50, then it's, you know, high probability we get to this 112.
Yeah, next leg up is
And we could, you know, just because we have a line doesn't mean market has to stop. Just because we have 3 drives doesn't mean the market has to stop. But these are the levels we have to watch. And since 2021 low, we had, you know, one big square to deal with, and that was 72 here. And you can see how we broke right through. And for the majority of the part, about 6 weeks, we basically held above it, right? Came back up above it, and we took off. So, but if this squared out, you know, with that 72 by 72, if the high is in place, this shouldn't screw around going sideways. You know, we should immediately see, you know, very quick price action. So that would be one of the clues. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now we get to see the inverse. The troubled euro.
Yeah. Well, we talked about if we, you know, take out the 216, we're probably going to go lower, maybe to parity. Well, we're not too far on that, off that low.
Mm-mm.
And if we can't really get above this 102, 102.5, let's say, euro's in big trouble. It's probably going to go down to, you know, 98, 99.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really sure how that's going to, all the implications of that, but just don't be holding in euros.
Right.
So, and that's a pretty straight chart to look at. It's not, you don't need any fancy tools. Now we did have 144. That's probably why I had this big bounce, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like we did on the dollar. Remember, the dollar did the opposite, you know, pretty much the opposite, right? And even in degrees, it matched it up. So it's possible that we you know, have a little bit of relief rally, and even the relief is 104 is pretty much where the big resistance is now. Just like, you know, we came down to the halfway point. You see how we rallied back up to the full square, and we stalled there for what, you know, a couple 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and to fail, and badly. So we'll see how that goes. But for next week, because it is 144 down, it's possible that we try to get some kind of rally up. We'll have to watch that. But if this 144 goes, if the low goes, then, you know, what do we say? 98, 99 is the next stop.
Trouble in Euroland when that goes.
But isn't that trouble already? I mean, more trouble. You mean more trouble?
More trouble. More trouble.
So look how proper this stair stepping is, right? It's 144 from there, 72 from here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything's just perfectly
harmonic.
Perfectly harmonic.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Looking at the weekly, well, we broke that. Remember that we're talking about this low being taken out?
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. So now I really don't, I mean, that's not a low. I think we're going lower. And this 104 is really liable to recover. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it has to if it wants
Yeah.
to.
I mean, it might go up and retest it, but the path is definitely lower because we really didn't finish that up.
Yep.
Now, this has the look of a false break now, right? People that are just watching price action. And that it could be, because that does have a look of a flush, right?
Yep.
So we'll have to keep that in mind. That's why we're watching the 104.
Yeah, you got to clear 104.
Right. All right. Let me put it back to you. Go through the commodities.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Well, there's the NASDAQ.
And surprise, surprise, it was leading last week. Stronger than the S&P, which is interesting in that it was leading on the downside as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what we got this week was the full square here at call it 11,500 held. pushed up. And again, just like we had the weekly close over here where we were right at the half square, we're just barely on top of the half square here.
Right.
So we'll need a little push on Sunday night Globex to get us over this half square. Let's see if we can push up, sit on top, and then continue the rally up. If we just do an ABC, that takes us to about 12,550. If we do a similar move, like I was talking about when you were reviewing the S&P, if we do a similar magnitude move that we saw here in March, that gets us up to around 13,400. So in this half square area right up here. So right now, that's my working thesis where we're going. And as always, price has to confirm. So we'll see what happens. But we've done good things in that we've broken a downtrend line. We held a full square. And now we're working on the half square here in this 12,150 area. Any other comments from you on NQ?
Well, just at the pattern where we stopped and sort of the breakout levels, S&P and the NASDAQ has them, along with the ABCD to the upside. So it'll be interesting. I think if those levels get taken out to the upside, it just shows there's a good chance that everybody moves.
Yeah, and there could be that pylon effect like you were talking about in the ES where, just nothing for 100 points, we could shoot right up to this full square pretty quickly and easily.
Right.
By the way, all the levels for all the markets we do are in a Google Doc spreadsheet that when we post the video, we'll post a link to that. So you can, if you don't write down the levels or you don't remember them from the show, you can refer to that spreadsheet and get the information. So let's jump over to commodities now. As I said, it was a busy week. And as you and I were talking before we started recording, Barrie, there was definitely a shift this week. Something changed. A lot of squares showed up and a lot of square outs showed up in this in the commodity world this week. I mean, any comments on what you were seeing and a shift where that you felt as well?
Well, a lot of things came into squares.
And historically, when that happens, what have you noticed?
Well, there's definitely a rebound, some kind of a counter trend rally, right?
That's right.
Off of a square. So we definitely came into it. And you had some cycle points at those lows anyway.
Correct.
And on top of the squares. So I think, I think we could be onto something here.
It's worth paying attention. Let's put it that way.
Well, it might be, and worthwhile trading, but it may be a little, we have to just watch it, daily price action and see. But we definitely have a potential for some kind of reversal here.
Yeah, let's jump in on the grains first and whip through them because they're all looking very similar here. So here's wheat. Now, what I'm interested in wheat is if you look at the low, we didn't quite make it down to the full square here, but look at this area of support that we came into. Essentially that this sideways correction that we saw prior to the Russian invasion of Ukraine is where price came in and tested. And the turnaround out of here was pretty violent. I mean, just look at Friday's bar. It opened on the low, closed on the high. Can't get more bullish than that for a daily bar. But what I'm interested in wheat, we can't just say, oh, that's the low. Okay, everybody jump in. The water's fine. We're going to all make money on the long side. But what we want to see is okay, where does this counter trend go? Do we stop here at the full square? Do we push through and go up to this half square where there's resistance? And then, and most importantly then, what does the first pullback look like? Do we hold a support level? Do we hold a trend line? Do we make a higher low? Or is this just, a quote unquote, like a bear market bounce that we're going to then go and make another low? So those are the questions that at this point we can't answer. What we can answer at this point is that there was a good square here at the low. The squares were 90 by 90 on a 4 hour, which is, really good. So we squared out down here. We had a nice strong move coming out of here. Now we got to see what does price action tell us on the first pullback on a daily basis out of this formation. Anything else you see in this structure, Barrie, that you want to point out? I mean, you're like the king of corners. Where are you with this as a potential corner setup?
Well, I think it's a pretty good corner, although we don't have really a hard square like we had in a couple of other things when I was covering it. But what's interesting is from 2019 lows, this low that we had last week is 180 degrees up. So that's important. So I would note that
in there. Mm-hmm.
From 2019 lows, yeah.
Right.
We don't have to go back there, but I was looking at my charts and we rested on that, and also this breakout point, right? The whole triangle that we broke out of in February.
Mm-hmm.
So we came right back into that, and so price action wise, there's a good chance we finish something there, and we do have good support from the low in 2019. So yeah, I think we had something there.
Agreed.
But like you say, I always like to watch the first pullback to put a trade on. So it'll be good to watch the next pullback, see where we hold.
And you can drop down to your 4 hour or hourly charts, whatever you trade, if you really want to sort of get an earlier entry. But this is bigger picture. So we're watching the daily here, and this first pullback, I think, the first pullback will be instructive, and where this initial thrust higher stops will also be very instructive. So watching wheat very closely for signs that, and more confirmation that this square here is a really good one that we made.
Mm-hmm.
Let's jump over and take a look at corn. Similar picture in corn. The difference here, and what I wanted to show you, both in corn and soybeans, which we'll do next, is notice the fractal going back into last year, 2021, summer and fall. So we made a high, pulled back, lower high, sharp move lower, then a bounce, and then we drifted down and made a slightly lower low here that set off this big move higher. So far we've done first pullback, lower high, sharp move lower. So this is the equivalent of this in here. Then we make this big bounce, which we're starting here. Now let's see where this bounce sort of fails and turns lower. And then are we going to do this sort of thing and drift, or are we going to make a higher low and then be able to, confidently say, okay, let's ride this next wave up. It's a little different than wheat in that there wasn't this kind of fractal previously for wheat like we're seeing in corn. But the low came in on a half square. We had a strong move higher off of it. We cleared this full square, which was very important. Now we want to see, can the next pullback sit on top of it and give us a higher low on top of that full square? So I put corn in a similar bucket as wheat, in that something ended here. The question is, is this a good enough low to set the corner and give us a move up and a higher low, and then we catch the third wave going higher on the next big leg up in corn and wheat. Any thoughts on corn here, Barrie?
No, we're good. I think it's corn and wheat pretty much on the same track at this point.
Okay, let's jump over and take a look at beans. Here's beans. Failed up here at the full square, which we documented, weeks ago, that this was a potential breakout. We couldn't hold this. We just sort of made a false break and then gave it up. The fractal here is similar, right? High, pullback, lower high, steep pullback, bounce off this low. Where we are here is we made a high, pullback, lower high, steep drop, and now we're bouncing again. So the same thing with beans and corn. I want to see where, and wheat as well, where this counter trend higher ends, and then what's the first pullback look like? Do we find support on the half square here? Do we make a higher low? Can we get more confidence that this low was a corner, based on the square out and the price action afterwards? We'll have the evidence we need to trade it. Do you want to look structurally where the low came in?
Mm-hmm.
Came in right on a logical spot, right? Right on top of this high and this high, previous highs. So structurally, it's good. There's a square there. We just want to see where this counter trend stalls, and then the next pullback to give us higher confidence trade that we could do something here.
Well, there is a square there where, well, not a square, but we had a good measured move. We're 90 degrees from the high on my chart. So
90 by 18. Yep.
Something like that. Yeah.
Right here. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So the grains are all showing signs that something changed this past week. Right? We were all three of them. We were in strong counter trends lower. We talked about it on our monthly show, how they were coming into longer term support, that these things were still very bullish on a 10,000 foot view, bigger picture. And here now on the dailies, we've gotten evidence that there's decent lows here that we just now want to see how they play out with the counter trend and the first pullback. That's the key to getting in with a really, really favorable risk reward ratios. If we can buy something in here on a reversal on the lower time frame, and then look for the push higher in the third wave. That's it for the grains. Let's take a look at silver. Barrie covered gold, so I won't go over gold, but I feel very similarly. We are in the area of a low in the time frame where we could get a turn on gold. And silver is no different. Silver has found nice support and found the low right on this full square here. Now, the question is, can we turn up out of here and get moving? The reason I wanted to show the silver chart is on this daily chart from this high here, we did 60 by 60. You can see it here where this is a square of 30 I'm using. We did two full squares in roughly the same time. 2 full squares over in time, 2 full squares down in price. So there is a square out right here. We are on a full square support. We have 2 days of price action above it. Now we got to see what we get next week coming out of here. This is a super early signal. Not a tradable signal yet in my work, but it's something where I need to pay attention, because this could be a low in silver and a turn here. If, on the other hand, we fall below this square and get stuck under, then the correction continues. But right now, it's got my attention, and I want to focus in on silver because of this squaring out. And if I'm not going to show it, but if you look on the weekly and the monthly, we also are completing ABCDs here at this low. Pretty big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add on silver?
No, we're good. Just to say that on my charts, we did 72 degrees down perfectly from the March high. So this is the thing. A lot of these commodities did really, perfect measured moves. So we'll have to see how we go from here, but that's definitely something to notice. And it all happened all at once, right? At the same time.
Same time in the same week.
Which is unusual.
There are squares all over these commodity charts. So it's not a signal in and of itself to jump in with, both hands and feet. You gotta wait and get a signal, get an entry signal, make sure you got good risk reward, but it's time to pay attention. Here's one that got absolutely crushed, copper. But take a look at what happened end of this week. Of course, we pushed further, right? Like these things always do. We pushed a little past the full square.
They have to.
Yeah. Then the next day we pop up. Look at the low of that bar. right on the square.
Mhm.
And then here we are, pushing a little higher here. So with copper, the daily did a 225 by 90 at these lows, here to here.
Yeah.
That's a 90-degree move, right, in time. Something changed. Does that mean we're going right back to the highs? Absolutely not. Could go sideways here, could chop around, but something changed right here. So I've got copper on my radar, wanting to watch how the price action progresses because of this square that came in, and now it's really important to see how we progress price action wise. Are we going to get stuck under this half square? Are we going to make it up to the full square? Once we rally up, where's the first pullback come? So it's early in copper, but I wanted to bring it to your attention because of what happened here at the low. Anything else to add on copper, Barrie?
Well, another example of things coming into measured move places. Here, like on my chart from the 2020 low, we're up 90 degrees, and that's pretty much where the pullback came to.
Absolutely.
And on the way up, though, the half square up from there is around 407, which, that's the level that we hung above before dropping.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's something to watch. If the support holds, we get a decent pullback. It's possible that we go up and test that.
Which would be a hell of a move from where we are now.
That would be, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's what copper looks like. Again, not saying it's time to jump in, buy calls or whatever long the futures, but it is time to pay attention. Here's another one we haven't talked about in a while, nat gas. Nat gas, has been on and off the show for over a year now, and we successfully traded this leg right here. Sharp pullback in natural gas. The things that sort of picked up my interest here is on a 4-hour basis. From here to here, we had a nice square, 135 by 120. We bounced up and have gotten stuck on this full square, and that's around, call it 630. So I'm interested in watching the next pullback. Do we get that higher low, or do we do some sort of false break and come back here and test this half square, which is at around, call it 510. And if you notice where, if we do come back and take that out but still hold here, look at what we're sitting on top of.
Mm-hmm.
All that price action from the first quarter in December of last year.
All right.
So again, it's not a signal to buy, not a signal to go long here on nat gas. It's a signal to pay attention. We had squares here at the low. We've had a nice rally off of that's getting stuck at resistance. We want to see how it deals with this resistance. And then on the next pullback, do we get that higher low? Do we get a false break? Where do we find support? Because that's going to tell us whether this is actually a corner or just a way stop, for the next move lower. But nat gas is on the radar as well. Anything to add on nat gas, Barrie?
I think you covered it pretty well. Plus, I don't have any good measured moves or squares at the low, so it's possible that go a little lower. We'll have to wait and see.
All right, we've got a couple. We're going to finish up with a couple of the softs. This is one we've talked about for a while. And as you can see, it's been going sideways for a while. The reason I wanted to bring this up was we have an ABCD that's done and completed here at the lows off of this high. And then look at that bar on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
No news, just the ABCD completed and we shot up. Now, right now, we're just back into this major congestion, but I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention because when I see an ABCD complete and we get a move like that, this is the start of something different, right? And we had that whole, the whole conversation that Barrie and I were having at the beginning of the show that something shifted this week in the commodity world. These this timing, and it's not just one. It wasn't just the grains. It wasn't just the metals. It's not just energy. It's not just the softs. It was across the board. So this has me again putting sugar on the radar to see if are we going to get something going here. Much like all the commodities I've covered this week, we don't have enough information to trade yet, but what we want to begin to do is focus closely on where do we run into resistance on this first counter trend, and then on the pullback off of this counter trend, where does it find support? Ideally, we could push above here, settle on the half square, and then we can attack this full square. What may end up happening is we may have to come back and, find support here in this 1850 area, where there's been a ton of support over the last year or so, and as well as resistance. So sugar I have put on here, partly based on the move on Friday, partly based on sort of the squares and the completions that we're seeing, across the board in these commodities. By the way, on the daily here, this was a 45 by 60 at this low. So nice square. Let's see what it brings. Any comments on sugar, Barrie?
Well, sugar, again, off the 2020 lows, the support came in at 135 degrees up on my squares. Again, that's one of those measured places. Just to say, I'm just mentioning these just to see how many stacked up last week.
It's really amazing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a lot of things came together in an unexpected time. I mean, the cycle stuff that I had for this week wasn't major in my book, but man, to see all these squares and, like you said, things that were coming in on top of support from the 2020 lows, it's not an accident. Something happened. All right, let's go to the last one. This is cotton. And as you can see from the highs, cotton got tattooed. I mean, they took it out to the woodshed. But look at what's happening here. For cotton, we have a square 135 by 45 here at this low. We found support. It tried to push for 3 days. It tried to push below this full square. And look where we ended up at the close on Friday. High of the day, above the full square. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I really liked about this cotton action is you could say we've completed 5 down. If this was your little fourth triangle here, and then you have a false break fifth. Right now, this is looking like a false break. So for cotton, what I want to see is, and it's going to sound like a broken record, where does this first move higher end? And then where do we get the pullback? Where does that first pullback stop? Something completed here. The question is, what's coming next? And the answers are going to come with price action, more price action. So this one, again, nothing to do here yet, but it's on the radar, looking for evidence that this square out was good. Last thing I'll point out before I flip it to you about asking about cotton, Barrie, is look at where the lows came in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right on top of these lows, or the highs in 2021, which came off of, I'm sure, the COVID lows in 2020. Anything else grab your attention on the cotton chart?
Well, with all these things coming into key support levels, I'm just wondering if this is the start of something. It might be a slow start, but we definitely have to watch these lows, which means we got to watch the next counter trend or the next pullback.
That is key. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple that I didn't cover, same sort of thing. The reason I didn't cover them is because you cover them in your big five. Mm-hmm. That's crude oil and gold. Very same good. Type of thing. Something ended, something changed. We need more evidence to see what comes next, but we know from a bigger picture what probabilities favor, and that's a bullish outcome. So in the commodity space for 6-7 months now on this weekly show, Barrie and I have been talking about how they're going into a breather, they're resting, they're consolidating, they're correcting. There's nothing really to do yet. We're going to watch them, looking for changes. There's a lot of evidence this past week that we may have reached that inflection point. We just need further confirmation from price action to stack those odds more dramatically in our favor. And we will be patient and we'll wait for the market to give us that evidence. But we have it sort of in the front of our minds now to watch this, because the signals are there that there's a decent chance that we're seeing some lows here, and the next legs could be started in a lot of these different commodities. So that's where my focus is going to be this week, along with watching the counter trends in the equity markets.
Mm-hmm.
But you, Barrie, what are you going to be focusing on?
Well, with all these lows coming in, we'll have to watch everything.
Yeah.
On in general, and obviously the S&P and gold. Those are the two things I'll be watching next week. Well, pretty much watch everything, but maybe the S&P would be the key.
Okay.
Yeah. And good job. You had a lot to cover this week.
Yeah, and it was completely unexpected. I was figuring, it's going to be another week of where we're just consolidating and chopping, and then I start going through the charts and all these squares start popping up, and I said, all right, something's up.
Mm-hmm.
We got to watch this closely. So,
and also, before we go, just to remind everybody, if they like that work, like the podcast, to click on like and share and do all those things. It helps.
Absolutely. Well, have a great week, everybody. Barrie, have a great week. I'm glad you're feeling better. Rest up, because we're going to need the energy this week.
Yes, we will.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Ben. Have a good week, everybody. Bye-bye.